You walk into a room and it happens again. Someone glances at you and your brain immediately starts building a story. They don't like me. I said something stupid earlier. I'm being awkward right now. You replay conversations from hours ago, analyzing every single detail with the precision of a detective investigating a crime scene. You dissect their tone, their facial expressions, the pauses in their sentences, the way they looked away when you were talking. You leave social situations feeling completely exhausted, not because of the people you interacted with, but because of the invisible trial that's been happening inside your head the entire time. Here's the real question that nobody seems to be asking. What if nobody is actually judging you the way you think they are, but you've been judging yourself so harshly for so long that you automatically assume the entire world does the same? What if this isn't really about confidence at all, but about a subconscious script that you've been running on autopilot for years without even realizing it? Tonight, we're going to dismantle that script completely because the invisible courtroom you've been living in doesn't need to exist anymore. Let me describe a few scenarios that might feel uncomfortably familiar to you. You're in a work meeting and you make a comment that gets no immediate response. The conversation just moves on to the next topic. In that moment, your brain doesn't interpret this as normal conversational flow. Instead, it immediately concludes that what you said was irrelevant or stupid, that everyone noticed how stupid it was, and that they're all secretly judging you for it. Or maybe you send a text message to someone and they don't respond for several hours. Your rational mind knows they're probably just busy, but there's another part of you that's convinced they're deliberately ignoring you because they don't want to talk to you anymore. Or perhaps you're at a social gathering and there's a brief moment of silence in the conversation. Everyone else seems comfortable with it, but you're panicking internally, convinced that you're responsible for the awkwardness and that everyone is thinking about how boring or uncomfortable you are. Here's what's really happening in these moments. You think they're evaluating you, but the truth is that you're evaluating yourself through them. You're using their reactions, or what you perceive as their reactions, as a mirror to confirm what you already believe about yourself deep down. The harshest critic in your entire life has always been speaking in your own voice, and you've been mistaking that voice for the voice of everyone around you. There's a psychological phenomenon called the spotlight illusion, which describes our tendency to dramatically overestimate how much other people are thinking about us. We assume we're constantly under a spotlight, being watched and evaluated, when in reality, most people are too preoccupied with their own lives and their own insecurities to spend much time thinking about us at all. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote something over 2,000 years ago that's still profoundly relevant today. He said that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The courtroom where you're being judged exists almost entirely in your imagination, and you're playing every role simultaneously. You're the defendant, desperately trying to prove your innocence. You're the prosecutor, relentlessly building a case against yourself. You're the jury, already biased toward a guilty verdict. And somehow, you're also the judge, pretending to be impartial while knowing exactly how the sentence will end. This pattern you're experiencing right now, this constant anxiety about how others perceive you, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. This is an insecurity that you developed as an adult. This is programming that was installed in you a long time ago, probably before you were even old enough to understand what was happening. Let me explain where this really comes from, because understanding the origin is the first step toward breaking free from it. When you were a child, your survival depended entirely on the approval of authority figures in your life. Your parents, your teachers, your caregivers, these people had complete power over your safety and well-being. Your young brain learned very quickly to read their emotional states, to anticipate their reactions, to modify your behavior based on whether they seemed pleased or displeased with you. This wasn't a conscious strategy you developed. It was an automatic survival mechanism that your nervous system created to keep you safe. For some children, this approval was consistent and predictable. But for many others, it was conditional and unpredictable. Maybe your parents praise you one day for being outspoken and confident, then criticize you the next day for the exact same behavior because they were stressed or tired. Maybe you were punished not for what you did, but for how your parent felt in that particular moment. Maybe you experience what I call micro-shame moments, small incidents that seem insignificant to an adult but feel devastating to a child. A teacher laughing at your question in front of the class. A parent rolling their eyes when you try to share something you were excited about. A group of kids excluding you from a game without explanation. Let me give you a concrete example of how this programming works. Imagine a young child who confidently raises their hand in class and gives an answer they genuinely believe is correct. The teacher or another student laughs. It wasn't malicious laughter. It was just a spontaneous reaction to an unexpected answer, but the child's nervous system doesn't process nuance. In that moment, the child's brain creates a simple equation that goes like this. Visibility equals danger. Speaking up equals humiliation. Being confident equals being exposed to pain. That equation gets stored deep in the subconscious, and 20 or 30 years later, that child is now an adult who experiences intense anxiety before speaking in meetings, even though they consciously know their ideas are valuable. This is why your adult social anxiety isn't really about whether people like you or not. Your brain isn't asking the question, do they like me, at all. Your brain is asking a much more primitive and urgent question, which is, am I safe right now? Every time you walk into a social situation, your nervous system is scanning the environment for signs of potential rejection or judgment, not because you're insecure, but because you were trained to do this as a survival skill when you were too young to understand that not all disapproval is life-threatening. If you're recognizing yourself in what I'm describing right now, I need you to understand something that might fundamentally change how you approach this problem. You cannot fix subconscious fear with conscious logic alone. You can read every book about confidence that exists. You can repeat positive affirmations to yourself every morning. You can rationally understand that people aren't judging you as harshly as you think they are. But if your internal blueprint, the programming that runs below your conscious awareness, still says, I am not enough or I am not safe, then your brain will continue searching for evidence to confirm that belief no matter how much conscious work you do. This is exactly why I recommend a book called The Subconscious Millionaire. Despite the title, this book isn't just about money or financial success. It's about identifying and systematically rewriting the deep subconscious scripts that shape how you see yourself and how you automatically assume others see you. If you want to break the root of this pattern, instead of just trimming the leaves, instead of just managing the symptoms, the link is in the description. Now let me show you exactly how this pattern perpetuates itself once it's installed. There's a specific mechanism that keeps this pattern running, and once you understand how it works, you'll start seeing it everywhere in your life. It functions like a self-reinforcing loop that becomes stronger every time it completes a cycle. Here's how it operates step by step. First, you hold a hidden belief about yourself that you're not consciously aware of most of the time. This belief usually sounds something like, I am not good enough, or I am fundamentally flawed, or I don't deserve to be here. This belief isn't something you chose, it's something that was programmed into you through repeated experiences during your formative years. Second, your brain, operating on this hidden belief, actively seeks confirmation of it. This is called confirmation bias, and it's one of the most powerful cognitive patterns humans have. Your brain doesn't want to be surprised. It wants to be right, even if being right means confirming something painful about yourself. Third, when you're in a social situation, neutral behavior from other people gets automatically interpreted through the lens of this confirmation bias. Someone checks their phone while you're talking. A neutral act that can mean 1,000 different things gets interpreted by your brain as evidence that you're boring or that they don't respect you. Someone doesn't laugh at your joke. Instead of thinking the joke just wasn't that funny or that they didn't hear it properly, you conclude that they think you're awkward or trying too hard. Fourth, this interpretation triggers anxiety. Your body tenses up. Your voice changes slightly. You become hyper-aware of yourself. You start monitoring everything you say and do with intense scrutiny. Fifth, this anxiety causes you to actually behave differently. You become more hesitant in your speech. You make less eye contact. You withdraw slightly from the conversation. Your body language becomes closed off. And here's where the loop becomes truly insidious. Sixth, Other people notice this change in your behavior. They might not consciously register it, but they sense something is off. They might respond by becoming slightly more reserved themselves, or by simply not engaging with you as enthusiastically because your energy has shifted. Seventh, you interpret their response as confirmation of your original fear. You think, see, I knew they didn't like me. I knew I was being awkward. I was right to be anxious. And the loop completes itself and starts again, stronger than before. Here's the profound truth that most people never realize about this pattern. You don't actually fear their judgment. What you fear is confirmation of what you already suspect about yourself. You're not walking into social situations wondering if people will judge you. You're walking in already convinced that you're somehow inadequate, and you're just waiting for reality to confirm it. The judgment is already happening inside you, and you're projecting it outward onto everyone else. Let me show you how dramatically different the same objective reality can be interpreted depending on your internal lens. A confident person walks into a room. Someone glances at them and looks away. Their brain interprets this as neutral, just a normal glance. No story created, no emotional charge attached to it. But a person running the pattern we're discussing walks into the exact same room. The exact same person glances at them and looks away. Their brain interprets this as rejection. They think the person looked away because they found them unappealing or uninteresting. Same event, same external behavior, completely different internal experience. The difference isn't in what happened. The difference is in the lens through which it was interpreted. Before we talk about how to break this pattern, I want you to understand why your brain does this in the first place, because when you understand the mechanism, you stop feeling ashamed of it. This isn't a personal failing. This isn't weakness. This is actually your brain trying to protect you using outdated software. Human beings evolved in small tribal groups where social exclusion was genuinely life-threatening. If you were rejected by your tribe 50,000 years ago, you would die. You couldn't survive alone. You needed the group for protection, for resources, for reproduction, for everything. So our ancestors, who were hyper-vigilant about detecting signs of potential rejection, had a survival advantage. Their nervous systems were wired to constantly scan for any indication that they might be losing social standing or facing exclusion. This hypersensitivity to social threat was passed down through generations because it kept people alive. But here's the problem. Your modern brain is still running this ancient software. It's still scanning for rejection as if your survival depends on it. Even though you live in a world where social rejection, while uncomfortable, is not actually life-threatening. Someone not liking you at a party doesn't mean you're going to starve. Someone thinking you're awkward at work doesn't mean you'll be exiled to die alone. But your nervous system hasn't updated its threat assessment system. It still treats social rejection like a survival emergency. There's an important principle in neuroscience that explains this perfectly. Your brain would rather assume danger and be wrong than assume safety and be rejected. This is called negativity bias. It's more adaptive, from an evolutionary perspective, to have 10 false alarms than to miss one real threat. So your brain constantly scans for judgment, for disapproval, for signs that you're not being accepted, because in the ancient environment where this system evolved, missing those signs could get you killed. But here's the twist that most people never consider. The more you scan for judgment, the more self-centered you actually become. I know that sounds counterintuitive because you feel like you're thinking about what everyone else thinks of you. But think about what's actually happening. You're constantly thinking about yourself. You're constantly monitoring yourself. You're constantly analyzing how you're being perceived. Every conversation becomes about you and whether you're being judged. Thinking that everyone is judging you is still thinking that everyone is thinking about you. It's a different form of self-centeredness, one that's rooted in fear instead of confidence. But it's still keeping you trapped in your own perspective instead of actually being present with other people. This brings me to a deeper layer that most people who struggle with this pattern never fully grasp. If your subconscious identity is "I am flawed" or "I am not worthy," your brain will actually bend reality to protect that identity. This seems backwards at first. Why would your brain want to protect a negative identity? Because the brain values consistency and predictability above almost everything else. A known identity, even a painful one, feels safer than the uncertainty of changing. This is why surface-level confidence techniques rarely create lasting change. You can practice power poses. You can rehearse what you're going to say. You can try to think more positively. But if the underlying identity hasn't shifted, if the deprogramming is still running the same script, those techniques will only work temporarily before the old pattern reasserts itself. The real shift happens when you rewire the identity itself at the subconscious level. That's exactly what the subconscious millionaire teaches. It shows you how your internal belief system dictates your external perception of reality. And more importantly, it gives you practical tools to actually change that belief system at its root. If what I'm saying is resonating with you right now, if you're recognizing that this pattern goes deeper than simple social anxiety, check the link below. Now let me give you some practical tools you can start using immediately. Breaking this pattern requires a different approach than what most people try. This isn't about becoming more confident. This isn't about learning social skills. This is about fundamentally changing your relationship with your own thoughts and rebuilding your identity from the inside out. Let me give you 4 specific strategies that work. The first strategy is to catch the story in the moment it's being created. When the thought appears in your mind that says they're judging me, or they think I'm stupid, or I'm being awkward, you need to immediately recognize it as a story, not as truth. In that moment, ask yourself this specific question: what story am I writing right now? Not, is this story true? Because that keeps you engaged with the content of the story. Instead, you're recognizing that your mind is actively constructing a narrative, and that narrative is optional. This simple recognition creates space between you and the thought, and in that space, the thought loses some of its power. The second strategy is to replace interpretation with neutral observation. This is not about positive thinking. Positive thinking would be replacing "they think I'm stupid" with "they think I'm brilliant." That doesn't work because your subconscious knows you're lying to yourself. Instead, neutral thinking means replacing "they think I'm stupid" with "I don't know what they think." That's actually true. You genuinely do not know what's happening in someone else's mind. When you catch yourself making up a story about what someone else is thinking, deliberately replace it with the truth, which is that you simply don't have access to their internal experience. Someone looking at their phone might mean they're bored with you, or it might mean they just got an urgent message from their child's school. You don't know, so stop pretending that you do. The third strategy is to shift your attention outward through curiosity. This is the most powerful technique I can give you. Curiosity kills insecurity. When your attention is focused on, how do I look right now? What do they think of me? Am I being awkward? You'll always feel anxious. That internal focus creates anxiety by definition. But when your attention shifts to, what can I learn about this person? What are they interested in? What's their experience of this moment? Everything changes. You can't be simultaneously genuinely curious about someone else and self-conscious about yourself. The two states are neurologically incompatible. Your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. So when you feel the anxiety rising, practice asking questions that genuinely interest you about the other person and actually listening to their answers. The fourth strategy is to rebuild your identity at the foundational level. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be aligned. What does that mean? It means you need to get clear on who you actually are and what you actually value, independent of other people's opinions. When you don't have a strong sense of your own identity, you need external validation to tell you who you are. You need people to like you because their approval is how you know you're okay. But when you have a clear sense of your own values and identity, other people's opinions become interesting data rather than determinants of your worth. Someone not liking you just means you're not aligned with that person, and that's perfectly fine. Not everyone needs to like you. You don't need everyone to like you. You need to like yourself and be aligned with your own values. Let me paint you a different picture now. You walk into a room again. Someone glances at you. But this time, something is different. This time, you don't immediately convene a courtroom in your mind. You don't summon an invisible jury to evaluate your worth. You don't start prosecuting yourself for crimes you haven't committed, because you finally understand something that changes everything. Their opinion of you is uncertain. You don't actually know what they think, but your judgment of yourself, that was always certain. You've been judging yourself harshly and constantly, and then assuming everyone else was doing the same thing. But they weren't. They were mostly just thinking about themselves and their own lives and their own insecurities. The prison you've been living in, that invisible courtroom where you're always on trial, it was constructed entirely by your own mind. And what your mind constructed, your mind can deconstruct. This doesn't mean you'll never feel socially anxious again. It doesn't mean you'll suddenly become completely indifferent to what others think. What it means is that you'll recognize the pattern when it starts. You'll see the story being written in real time. And in that recognition, you'll have a choice. You can continue running the old program, or you can consciously choose a different response. You can catch yourself interpreting neutral behavior as judgment and deliberately return to neutral observation. You can feel the anxiety rising and shift your attention outward through genuine curiosity about the other person. You can notice yourself seeking validation and reconnect with your own internal sense of who you are and what matters to you. The day you stop assuming you're being judged is the day you stop judging yourself. And that's not a scary realization. It's profoundly liberating because it means the power was always yours. The problem was never them. It was never that you weren't good enough or smart enough or interesting enough. The problem was that you were running a program that was installed before you were old enough to question it, and that program was designed to keep you safe in an environment that no longer exists. If you're tired of living inside that invisible courtroom, if you're exhausted from constantly monitoring yourself and analyzing every interaction and replaying conversations and wondering what everyone thinks of you, then it's time to do something different. If you're ready to dismantle the subconscious script that has been telling you that you are not enough, then don't just watch another video and hope things change on their own. Start actually rewriting the program at the level where it exists. The subconscious millionaire goes deep into exactly how identity, self-worth, and subconscious beliefs shape your entire experience of reality. It gives you the tools to identify the programming that's running below your conscious awareness and shows you how to systematically replace it with something that actually serves you. The link is in the description, but I want you to remember this above everything else. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think they are, and that's not a scary truth. It's the most freeing truth you'll ever fully accept, because it means you can stop performing for an audience that isn't watching. You can stop defending yourself in a courtroom that doesn't exist. You can finally step out of the spotlight you put yourself under and just be present in your actual life with actual people. That's where real connection happens. That's where real confidence is built. And that's where you've always deserved to be.